see before anything, the pins for the trigger, the selector plate, and the hammer, okay, they are not all the same size. The hammer pin and the trigger pin are the same size, but if you look here, this third pin here is longer than the rest. This pin here is for your selector plate, and that's because the back of the trigger box here is fatter than the rest of the trigger box, so you need a longer pin. So make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, now with your bearings, you got your hammer bearing and your trigger bearing here. Alright, they're the same length, but the trigger bearing is fatter than the hammer bearing. If you look closely, it's got a bigger diameter than the hammer bearing. So this one here is for the trigger. Make sure the fatter one is for the trigger. Alright, now with that said, let's get this show on the road. Also bear with me because it's not exactly easy getting all this stuff back in. Easy taking it out but not putting it back in. You're going to want to take your sear here and that sear spring I told you not to lose earlier. You're going to reinstall it into your trigger like so. Put your trigger bearing in. Next you're going to take your trigger springs. Now the longer part of the spring, as you can see here, the front is shorter than the rear. The longer part goes toward the back, like so. Sits on that little nipple. And the same with the other side. Alright. Now with that done, you're going to just want to drop this whole thing right back into the trigger box. Alright, now it's in there. We want to make sure everything's lined up. It's going to be a pain in the butt getting the pin back in, but let's see what we can do. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Alright, good deal. Got it in there. Alright, now next step, you're going to want to put in your trigger. But before you do so, keep this in mind also. You're going to want to put your selector in first, and there's a reason for this. Basically, when you go to put your trigger in, it's going to push down on the top of your hammer, and when your hammer goes down in the front, it's going to push up on the back, and if you can see in there, you're not going to be able to get your selector in there. So make sure you put your selector back into your trigger box before you put the hammer back. And it just slides right in. There's a slot, and there's a little nipple on the selector here, and it just fits right into that slot. Alright, so next, let's do the hammer. Excuse me. Hammer spring goes on the hammer like so. Then your hammer bearing. Alright, I'm going to drop this back in. Like so. Pin. Let's see how hard this is to get in. Go. It's easier to put the pin in if you're pulling the trigger and pushing down at the hammer at the same time. That's a little trick I've learned while doing all these damn trigger boxes. Trust me, all my WEs have these trigger boxes in them, so it just makes it a whole lot easier. Let me get this bad boy through the other side here. There we go. She's in there. Alright, that's done. That's basically the hardest part of putting this whole thing back together. I might have just made it look a little bit easier, but trust me, it's not. It's a pain in the butt. Alright, so moving on from there, let's put our firing pin back in with our spring and the plate. So what you're going to do is pull your hammer back. It'll lock in because you got your trigger in there. There's a little slot here. I hope you can see it in there. There's a slot right here, right in the middle, that this spring drops into. Just drop your spring in. Take your firing pin. Drop it down in there. Push it into place and make sure you hold it into place because now it has tension on it from that spring. Put your pin plate back on like so and just put the screws back right into the plate. That's one of the easiest parts, to be honest with you. Alright, so moving on. Basically what we're going to want to do next is put our valve locker in here with the valve spring. So here goes our stainless steel RA Tech valve locker. Alright, here goes our spring for the valve locker. Just want to drop this back in like so. Alright, now basically what you're going to want to do next is take your bolt catch and your bolt catch release. You're going to put the bolt catch release in first. Alright, fits right in there. Now the pain in the butt part here is getting all this back together without losing this little tiny spring. So hold the spring in place, which it just popped out. Alright, add that back in. While you're holding it, put your screw back in, this way you don't lose that spring. If you lose that spring, then your bolt catch won't work. Alright, spring's in there, good to go on that. You can let go of your bolt catch release now because that's not going to fall out because it's being held in by that. What we're going to want to do next is take this plate cover here again, reinstall that. Alright, like so. And then next comes our selector plate. It goes in here. As you can see, there's a tooth on there, and there's a tooth on your selector rod. Just slide it right on in. It'll hook right into them teeth, like so. Grab your pin, slide it through just a bit. Alright, next grab your spring and you're going to want to put it in this way, okay? Push it through, make sure the pin locks in, like so. We're good. You want to grab your needle nose here and push your spring back into place. There you go. Almost there. Alright, next, I found it easier from this stage here to just take it and drop it right back into your trigger housing here. Alright, and then you have your gears here. Now the ring that's on the inside, make sure it goes to the inner part of your trigger box like so. It'll just pop right into place like so. Alright, and we install our housing screw. And then we're going to reinstall our selectors. It's always easiest to see where the selector is sitting before you reinstall it. This way you know where to put the bearing. Alright, drop your bearing into place. then reinstall your selector. Holding your selector down, just tighten up the Allen key that's on the gear, like so, and you're good. Same thing with the other side. Put your bearing. Push down on it, and then just tighten up your Allen key. That's it. Easy as pie. The only thing left now to do is to install it back into the gun and see how she works. Once again, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope this helped to inform people on the trigger box for the G39. Any questions, please ask. Other than that, thanks for watching. Murder.